like actually understand what we are doing, to articulate it very, very, very well, to justify our design and our choices we are making. So students have to, learn to internalize design frameworks and mental constructs that guide their process over time. You are doing this today, tomorrow you will do it again, and every day, every now and then, when you keep repeating the same thing repetitively, you are developing a culture towards designing whatever you're going to do. When you get to a different environment and they want you to adapt to what they are doing, especially those who have to go and do internship in some offices out there and stuff like that, you find it difficult in the beginning adapting because you have come up with a strategy that works for you. What is more annoying is that wherever you go to, depending on which strategy works best for you, that is not so. Designing, one of the things to think about is okay, somebody is not muted. So designing a market will mean that okay, you know what? Let me provide a space for the selling area, the store, vending, a lot of spaces that makes a market a market. But then you need that what make what a market space means to someone who works in markets is different from what it means to you, the architects who is going to work on our scheme. Now the market woman spends more time in the markets than he or she in their own homes. They have this culture, they have this attitude, they have this affinity, they have this kind of love, and I don't know, a whole lot of emotions and some kind of nostalgia around getting to the market space. You can take that person away from that place for a very long time. You bring that person, this is the place that gave me life. Now, someone was born in the market because the mother was selling in the market. The person grew up helping the mother, so she grew up in the market. The person after school ended up taking the business of the mother to the next level, still in the market. You will die in the market, people will do your funeral. That market has been the person's whole life. But if you are to design a market and all you think about is a space for vending, is a space for selling, is a space for storage, then you are failed. Because that person is one day also going to have a child. And when that happens, what would you need? The child will have to sleep. And so you need to provide some space for the child, a space for the child to rest. And these are things that are not in our traditional markets. These are things that when you have in your scheme, set you apart from the rest because you have gone beyond just the ordinary requirements of what the design process should be by looking at the other aspects and the impact of what space you are going to create on how conducive it will be for the buyer, the seller, and whoever is not even involved in the art, like Kate, who is sleeping by the mother. The market becomes conducive for everybody. So typically, when a brief says that, okay, design a market in the Ghanaian context, it will mean acknowledging the community patterns, like I said, the open social spaces for the vendors, flexible weather resilient stores. But you need to analyze how different cultural, climatic, and social dynamics to, influence our behavior. So historically, right, I always like adding history. Traditional Ghanaian architecture was born from deep understanding of like briefs. If you really look at what they used to do those days, whether spoken or unwritten, like there's character, there's story, there's life. See, that's why those buildings still looks beautiful, even in the advent of glass and other, fantastic stuff that is happening. You still look at all those old buildings and you find it interesting and then sophisticated, even though they look so simplified, right? Okay, so there's way more stuff that you need to really look at, like the courtyard housing systems among the Ashantis, for example, response to the family structures, security, and climate. That is beyond creating a courtyard. That is creating a social cohesive space, and it should be the same like you approach the market design. Now, let's look at this also. Now, in a critical success factor, asking questions is very important. You have the scheme before you, you know what you're supposed to do. You also need to understand that when you ask questions, it brings more understanding to yourself, and it will show in the amount of work you're going to produce. Now, students really must have to the studio masters. If it's TAs, of course, you go back to them. Or if it's the users or if it's the clients, go back to the client. If it's a government project, go back to who the government want to do the design for. Don't go to the government for the brief. The government says design a chips compound, design markets, design a community center. Go to the community and ask them, what do you really want? These are very crucial in our design process. These often we don't do. When a scheme is introduced, you sit in your decks and then you start working things out. Sometimes you go to the internet to find valuable information to help you. Sometimes you don't get anything out of it, but of course, you give yourself a head start anyway, which is not right, right? It's not just good enough. So you need to really look at everything. There's so much ambiguity. There's so much to be considered. Age group, you have you considered all those things, the scale of implementation, the time scale, and all those things, the policies, constraints, the locality. You need to ask a lot of questions, and they narrow your focus. These questions, when you ask them, they narrow your focus. They encourage innovation. They prevent like superficial solutions. Sometimes the solutions you're bringing up doesn't really, it's not going to work. It's too superficial for the people in question we are thinking about. If only and only and only again, you ask them, what do you really want? And you will meet their needs. Right. So I would advise strongly that at this point, students should, consult the people. Even in fact, there is planning schemes that we don't really look at. If we can only have the materials, and I think it should be made available to every student in architecture school, planning, art, design, wherever, that you need to have the planning scheme, the building codes relevant. These things are very crucial, even in the design process. You don't just start with the stories, the ideas, the history, or the storytelling and the abstract. No, you need to know that after all the storytelling and everything, the thing is going to be built, and it's going to build systematically. It's going to build from standards. It's going to build from codes. It's going to build by people who are well informed and by a language that is universal. And so whatever story you told, whatever evocative metaphor it was, now you have to translate it to a universal language. But if you don't have an idea how the universal language should even look like in the first place, how would you communicate? That is where it becomes crucial that you understand all these planning schemes, the zone codes, and all those things that I've been speaking about. So yeah, of course, this is crucial. In a studio process, also students who meticulously analyze and restate their understanding of the brief, they gain stronger like critic responses. If you come to a jury and a jury is very short, it means that Charlie, there's nothing to even talk about. But you come and it becomes engaging and there's this and that, and you are responding to it. You are not just, it doesn't mean that Charlie, there's potholes in your work or whatever. No, it means that everybody is interested in what you're doing and want to help you more. And after that session, when you go back yourself, you find out more interesting and nicer ways to make your work appealing and get that kind of, recognition it should in terms of the grades and in terms of the attention. You see, so it is very, very important. For example, I'll just say that I think I have one third year, if I remember one third year KNOC students like reformulated something like a